So thank you all for that piece. It was really beautiful. It's also nice. I don't know about you guys, but I've been watching a lot of movies in my living room. It's so nice to see it on a big screen. The music, your use of music and silence was really beautiful. And, the projection, everything was just really, thank you for that love letter to New York City and Harlem. Here, let me give you that.
Okay.
So I have just a few questions. It's Sherman's wish that we hear more from you than from me. So I'm just going to open up a few questions for the folks here. I think, come on up. They're taking pictures.
Sherman has to.
Okay.
I think a lot of us probably have in our houses somewhere, our parents' attics, old pictures with nothing on the back, and you wonder who these people are. And, this film was just kind of a fantasy into following the life of one of those. Can you tell us about how you came to decide to follow this picture, the life of this picture?
The film started when I discovered that the photo was made by James Van Der Zee. And that was the trigger to make it.
How did you feel being in the film as well as the filmmaker?
That has to do with this idea of becoming visible. And that was really the inspiration by James Van Der Zee. To not only, and it has everything to do with this film, with this story.
And you, Mr. Dawson, you're a studier and an exhibitor. You've had exhibitions of James Van Der Zee's photographs, and I just would like you to speak a little bit more on his importance in destigmatizing the images of Black Americans that we typically see, and the importance of that.
I agree, but before I just want to tell you, you stole my line. Because what started off ostensibly as a kind of observation of a family photograph turned into a love poem for Harlem and for Black people. So I just want to thank you again for doing that, for understanding that that one particular holographic piece can give you a whole universe of Black people at least, and our contribution to Harlem too. So thank you. I loved it. I love seeing it too. And it also just feels so strange seeing yourself on screen, knowing that you don't look like that and don't sound like that. So, but again, what was also so amazing to me, because I was actually the James Van Der Zee curator of photography, film, and video at the Studio Museum. So I went through 59,000 pieces. Now what we saw, that kind of idealized 1919 photograph from Van Der Zee and from the UNI movement, that's half of it. Because half of the collection was thrown out. So there's another few 100,000 photographs we haven't seen. Well, at least I saw 59,000 that equivalent to that were thrown out. So I mean, it's incredible when you think about the loss, but this is a kind of reclaiming of what it all meant. And I would also like to say that Van Der Zee studio, he had a rack of those clothes. So people came in, they might be poor, and they might have been farmers in the South. When the way it came in, they had clothes they could put on that made them city slickers. There's a rack of clothes. Oh. Okay. Talk for Van Der Zee then, please. I stand corrected by somebody who knows.
Yes. Did you all hear this? Yeah. Well, this is a very Harlem, U.S.-American experience. It's dialogue. We love each other. We agree and disagree, fact-check each other. And this film couldn't have been made without the participants of many of the people that are in the audience that were in the film. So can we stand up and give them their due, please? If you were in the film or worked on the film, please.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Wordt je klapt voor iedereen die hier in de zaal zit.
So I'll ask one more question, or maybe a few more questions. Cécile, the film was shown in the Netherlands, and it's all very familiar territory for us here. But how was it received overseas? How did a European audience receive this film?
Yeah, the film is received very, very well in the Netherlands, really. The people were so enthusiastic and emotional. and they call it an eye-opener, because I think it's really different in how they receive this film, this story, this history in the Netherlands and here in New York. So we were I was very curious how the people here and in Harlem will react on the film. But in the Netherlands, really, I think it's, I also learn a lot about history and the cultural history and everything when you're making a film, when you're producing a film. But this, the Dutch people, it's really, what they say, an eye-opener, sometimes they say, yeah.
And it won top awards. You won some awards. It won awards in the Netherlands. Yes.
Not really an award, but was nominated by the Netherlands film critics, and it was selected at the Netherlands Film Festival. And we noticed that all over Europe, people react very positive on the film. But because of Corona, it took a long time to bring the film to the theaters. But we are very happy with the reception. And as I told you, I'm very curious how people here react to the film. So I would like to see if somehow it did something with the audience here.
Sure, the man has spoken. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Sherman, I just want to thank you so much. You know, I had no idea what will it turn out like. And all of the endless scenes that I was filmed in, I thought, well, is anything going to survive and be in this movie? But what I really have to say is not knowing what it would be like. What it has turned out to be, as far as I'm concerned, is a sort of elegy to a dying civilization in Harlem. And it's so poetic, and I just couldn't have hoped for anything better. And I'm so grateful to you. Will this be on Netflix or on Amazon Prime, or where will it be? It must be. It must be. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. I wish to thank all the people here who are in the film, that I can name you one by one, but thank you very much for making this possible. Thank you.
I also want to thank you for making the film that said that this continues. The film implies that the whole tradition of Van Der Zee continues, particularly because you focus so much on someone like Jamel Shabazz. You know, so that this is not really an eulogy, because it's not saying the end, it's saying it continues in all these different ways. So the constant referring to the contemporary photographers, I think, is really helpful and really productive for looking at the future, too.
I did have one more question I wanted to ask about. You know, one of my favorite parts of the film is having Mrs. Van Der Zee and Barbosa tell the stories behind the images that we're watching. And it just really underscores how important these images are. And then I was struck by the fact that his studio is now a real estate office. And I'm wondering if there's any efforts being made to landmark his studio.
I don't know if there's, do you know if there's? I don't know. Because the same was true of Morgan and Marvin Smith. They worked above the Apollo, and in fact, the same thing happened. They had half of their collection was thrown out because when they lost the space, but they were in the same building with the Apollo, and their first secretary was Billie Holiday. So, I mean, it's really funny when you look at the history that's still there, but they should put a plaque there also. But I think there definitely should be some historical site for that, too.
I agree.
I would like to say, the Van Der Zee building is part of the Mount Morris Park Historic District. So it is protected, and a really wonderful thing happened, and that is the owner of that real estate firm, when he was cleaning the building, he uncovered the sign that had been painted over. And so he asked the commission if he could keep it, and initially they said no. But we talked to them from the community, and so the sign was saved. As far as Morgan and Marvin Smith's studio, they were not in the Apollo, but the building next door to the Apollo, between the Apollo and the Victoria. And that building is not landmarked and has no protection, and it's very troubling to me that that building may likely be destroyed, and that would be a terrible thing.
Are there any other questions from the audience?
Yeah. Here you are.
Thank you.
Yo, wait a minute. I have the mic here. Do you first want to ask something or
Yeah,
say?
sure.
Or
I just want to say something. Sorry. Hi, my name is Juliet, and my parents are from the Netherlands, and they actually told me to come and see this movie. I didn't know anything about it, but they loved it, and we loved it too. So thank you very much. We learned a lot today again.
Thank you.
Mrs. Van Der Zee, would you like to come to the stage?
Do you want? You can say everything.
Hi. I just I was a little disturbed by the thought that Van Der Zee's work had been thrown away, had been destroyed, or something like that. And I wanted to know, where did you learn that?
We learned that from him.
Van Der Zee told you that?
He told it to Lou Draper. He told it to members of Kamonga when they were helping him in the 70s. You know, that things were put out, that there were cardboard boxes put out in front of the studio that were, with the photographs that were thrown away.
Oh, okay. That has something to do with his eviction.
Yeah.
And from what I understood, that it was Reginald McGee who gathered all of those photographs and brought them to the Studio Museum.
That's the collection I worked with, yeah.
Yeah, that you worked with. So there were not tons of photographs that...
We were lost. Huh?
No, there were not. And the negatives are there as well. And as a matter of fact, you'll soon learn that the Van Der Zee collection of what used to be the Van Der Zee Institute, which I turned into the Van Der Zee Foundation, and the works that are owned by the Studio Museum, which is 25% of the collection. I own 50% of the collection. And the other 25 goes to the Van Der Zee Foundation. All of that is going to be acquired by a museum, a well-known museum that we all love, and it will be the perfect place for his work.
Is that location a secret?
Place for his work. Yeah, it will be announced by Christmas, I would say that. And everyone will be able to go there, research his work, have your books, and ask for permission to use his work. That will be an excellent place to access all that you want to know about Van Der Zee, except for me. And I will still have photographs and things that if people would like to purchase, you know, I still have limited edition prints and things like that. But this is not about me. This is about Van Der Zee.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
I am curious what Mrs. Van Der Zee's reaction is on the film. Not only the photos and
I was stunned. I was hardly breathing because I didn't want to miss one thing. And I believe other people may have felt the same way. The person sitting next to me certainly wasn't doing much but looking everybody was focused on the work itself. And it was excellent. Excellent. I learned things about Harlem that I did not know. And I love the way you were weaving in today's Harlem with what was known about the Harlem of the Harlem Renaissance and the earlier years. So it was beautiful. Sherman, you did an excellent job.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. And we had a question right here. Cécile, if you mind. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Danielle James. I'm a fashion and beauty journalist and an entrepreneur, and I live in Harlem. I've lived in Harlem for the past 15 years. I moved there in 2006, and I just want to say that this film has been so beautiful. It really did feel like a love letter to Harlem, and as someone who moved there, because I just feel like you can always feel the spirit of the ancestors. I moved to Harlem. I live in Harlem because every day I walk down the same streets that people like this walk down. How can you not be inspired? How can you not feel the desire to create? My question is, how did you even begin out of those 59,000 photos that you've gone through to choose and select which ones you wanted to showcase in this piece of work? And also, just from a fashion perspective, it was just incredible to see visually. Thank you.
Sherman, do you want to tell her how you went about selecting the pictures that you chose to show in the film?
With the help, I think, of all the people in the film. I didn't do anything on purpose. I tried to let it happen. So the photos that came on my way, I used. So what you see here is all by chance. Because I'm not a scholar. I mean, I work as an artist, and this is what happened when I was working on the film. And probably a scholar would make a different choice than this. Yeah.
Well, whatever your method, it was a really beautiful film. It was felt like meandering through Harlem on an afternoon and dipping into people's lives and then also dipping into history. So we're out of time, but I'd like to thank Sherman and Cécile and Mr. Dawson one more time. And this film can be seen online until November 28th. Thank you very much.